one question I have. We talked a bit about root of trust. So, what is root of trust in HSM core, and how do you ensure that the HSM is not compromised?
Okay, that's a good question. So, answering your question, the root of trust, how HSM will be ensured. The HSM itself, or the root of trust, means that okay, we are trusting that, and whatever the code or action it has to perform, that will be by design, it will be secured. So HSM will have either memory segment or some memory protection where it is uh, nobody can tamper it or very hard to tamper this particular code. Then this will consider as root of trust.
Right. However, to answer the second part of the question, uh, if HSM itself can be compromised, right? So this is definitely a possibility. Of course, whatever uh, protection you would build, you will always have a way to break it or a mechanism to break it. So this is where that's how we all started this discussion, right? You have layered architecture. So normally what happens is if let's say your HSM is compromised. So there will be initial handshaking messages. That means your HSM and your host core, they will always exchange initial messages. And with that initial exchange of messages, you would know whether your core is compromised or HSM is compromised. So that would establish, let's say, the root of the chain of trust, right? So to add multi-layer protection here, you can always add different layers. That means it's not just one layer of security. That means it's not just one message where you can see that, okay, I exchanged this message, I am expecting such a message, and I got that message, which means my HSM and the host core is secure. No, you can always have multi-layer. That means first layer would be the root trust, then you will have an intermediate let's say key which will be derived from the root key. Then you would have maybe a dummy key. I'm just telling you there can be multi layers, right? So having all these things, it would help you to recognize whether certain hardware, the HSM or the core itself, is compromised. Now, apart from that, one other thing that you can also do to ensure that your HSM is not compromised is your HSM and your host core will always talk, right? There would be some channel. It can be through SPI, it can be through UART, it can be anything. It depends on how your hardware architecture is, how would you would have connected. So there will be sessions, right? So try to have unique key for every session. That means even if certain keys are compromised in one session, the next session when it gets opened, you have a unique key, you have a unique handshake, which means the attacker will have to redo the whole process again, or should always keep the point in mind that the session should always be kept open. Apart from that, you can also add one more saying that if the session duration is longer than certain amount of time, then automatically close the connection and reopen the connection, or maybe exchange some security messages. So these are some of the extra security measures that you can adapt, or you can implement. Now all these things, as part of the architecture, it will come into picture. Now whichever is the most secure part of your, let's say, the ECU or of your complete system, you would want to incorporate all these things here, right? So you wouldn't, these are costly operations. You wouldn't want to do it for every ECU. You would have to decide where should I put all these mechanisms, and based on that you would decide what layer or how much layer you would want to put in the security.